coming up on the Lead Ministry Podcast.
Okay. I would say the first thing, I would say there's a difference between what I call the yes face and the stress face. Are you, ministry leader, are you wearing or donning the stress face?
And now your host, Josh Denhart.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lead Ministry Podcast. My name's Josh Denhart, and I have my trusty sidekick, Bill Van Kirk. Bill, grateful to be here, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one again. Today, we're talking about as a ministry leader who is on staff, having your ducks in a row in such a way that you can be as present as possible for new families. That's the podcast today. Now, you guys know, if you're listening to this on any of the podcast networks that we place these on, we don't have like, a 22 minutes of fluff and blah, 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 and bizarre talk about nonsense. And then you got to scrub ahead to get to actual content. No, we get right to it. So we're going to get directly right to it. New families are an important thing. When a family is coming to your church for the first time and they have that kind of quintessential deer in the headlights look, and you can see them, you can see new people, and when you identify them, have you done the hard work ahead of time to position yourself to minister to them in a non-frenzied way? That's the point of the podcast today.
That's a great question to start out with. Like, each ministry leader to think about when I have that, it's actually, when you think about it, of your whole week, that's a very small window of time, right? To meet new people. And so the question is, have I overloaded my plate so much that when new people come in, I want to connect with them, because we all do, but I'm thinking in the back of my head 18,000 other things that need to happen in this moment. And so I'm actually not fully present with them, and I have to shortcut my talk with them. If you're in that position, it can be better. It can be better.
Okay. I love what you said. Framing it in the positive. It can be better. Mm-hmm. So let's just do a quick math lesson here. Let's say that you have 40 hours, which I know some of us are putting in more if you're on staff at a church, but let's just standardize it as 40 hours, and 2 of those hours are on a Sunday morning. Let's just go with that. Mm-hmm. And by the way, somebody's like, well, I'm at church for 6 hours on Sunday. Yeah, but the guests are there for a total of 2. You follow?
Right.
Okay. So 5% of 40 hours is 2 hours. So 5% of your week is when the body is gathered and when new people are there. So you have 95% of your time that you're being paid for in order to, I'm going to say, clear the clutter so that you can be fully present. It's important stuff.
Yeah, it's such a small amount of time. So I'm like a practical guy, Josh. Like, I love like practical, pragmatic. So when we think about, I want to ask you, because you are in this area, but yes. A lot of times a children's ministry leader or pastor is often the first to meet new families, besides maybe the welcome team, right? Mm-hmm. And it happens during usually a check-in process, or they walk up and they look like they don't know how to check their kids in. So what are some of the key things that you think a ministry leader should look at offloading in order to be fully present in that moment? What are some of the things that come to the top of your head?
Oh my word. So let's talk about 2 things. Number one, what you need to do. What does it mean, look like, smell like, to be fully present? We'll talk about that. And then in order to be fully present, what are the things that you need to now no longer ever do in your ministry?
Right.
Let's talk about the hope of what it would look like, smell like, feel like, sense, what people would sense from you if you're doing it right. Okay. I would say the first thing, there's a difference between what I call the yes face and the stress face.
Yes.
Okay. So are you, ministry leader, are you wearing or donning the stress face that when you're walking around with a chicken, like a chicken with your head cut off, you are literally, have you ever seen somebody who is leaning forward that if all of a sudden if you had like a ray gun and you pushed pause on everything, they would actually be at an angle. And if you turned the ray gun back off, and now they would fall flat on their face because they're literally leaning forward. That's crazy. And so do you have a posture that's back on you're kind of relaxed. You're able to mill about. You're able to kind of glad hand and love people. Even like I was feeling like stress thinking about that leaning forward posture. And I feel less stress as I think about just like this relaxed posture.
Right.
We as humans, like every other mammal on the planet, we are picking up cues from other humans around us. And so as like, if all of a sudden, like God calls us sheep, right? we're sheep. And there's that deal where a sheep you have a herd of sheep. Say you got 100 sheep. In one sheep, there's a fence, and he leans through the fence to get some grass on the other side, though he doesn't need to. And out of nowhere, one blade of grass goes way up inside its nose hole, and it freaks it out, and it pulls back erratically because it didn't like the sensation of that blade of grass going up its nose hole, and it pulls back erratically. 99 other sheep are like, what in the world is going on? There's probably a wolf. Everybody run that way.
Yes, absolutely.
So given that, we are sending cues to humans around us. And so for a new family, are you sending a subtle yet very loud communication signal that things are wrong here?
Yeah.
It's the stress face.
And I think that happens. And I've seen it in ministry where you have somebody maybe standing at your welcome area, and somebody comes up and they're trying to talk to you. And at first you're a little bit engaged, but then like as they're talking, you're like looking at what's going on over here, and you're looking at what's going on, and you're thinking about something else. And then all of a sudden you're trying to tune back into that person. You might feel like you're in it the entire time. That person knows that you're distracted. They know. And if you ask them in that moment, do you feel like you're being heard or listened to? If you could snapshot it, they would say, well, I feel like they're talking to me, but like I'm not the most important thing to them.
Yes. And people pick up on that. And that is not a welcoming posture or welcoming spirit. And I mean, good gracious, let's give all of us a little bit of grace. In those moments, when you have several fires and you know that they are actually burning a little hotter and are probably spreading, and you're looking at possibly a wildfire in your very own ministry, and you are trying to like plaster the smile, like in your mind, you're like, oh my word, I hope this person stops talking to me. It's like, because the building is on fire.
Yes.
And they know that. Or they don't know exactly what fire it is, but they know for sure. Intuitively, they sense.
Yeah, they sense something's off. Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know if you've ever read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
I sure have.
By Dale Carnegie.
Yeah.
He talks about in there, like giving somebody your full attention, and how when we do that, it actually makes the person feel very valued, and kind of like they endeared to you essentially, because they feel important then. And some of the most charismatic leaders in existence are people who, when people meet with them, they come away with, I felt like I was the only person in the room when I was talking.
I suck at this.
I love your honesty.
And I can do it pretty well for others, but I am really bad at this with my spouse sometimes. It's terrible. I'm so sorry. And if Sarah's listening, I apologize again. You know, and the reason why I'm not very good at it is because I'm trying to solve other problems, and it's disrespectful. That's my confession.
Yeah, there's kind of this is what's kind of cool about this. We've talked about this before, but there's an art to it. And this is an area that everyone can grow in as well. Mm-hmm. And so like as a ministry leader, you would think like, well, yeah, I'm in ministry. I have interpersonal skills. Well, you can develop those even further. And there's techniques you can learn in order to like really engage people well. And, they're simple, really. Like there's things you can do with eye contact, with how you position your body. There's
the use of their name repeatedly.
The use of their Yep. And also even like conversational models. So like one conversational model you could try this Sunday is ask a question to somebody, let them answer, ask a follow-up question, and then validate their response with a statement. And so if you do that over and over again, the person in the notice you're not the one talking. Fair. You're trying to validate them, right? And so like if you do that, they'll walk away feeling like, wow, that person really wanted to get to know me. They really wanted to have a conversation with me.
Yes. Now, I do thrive in those ways, especially when it's a new person or somebody that I genuinely feel I need to win over.
Yes, absolutely.
I can dominate at that. It's sometimes the people that are the closest to me that get the short end of the stick. So that's...
I think that's true for all of us because we don't feel like we have to try as hard on those things, you know?
Darn it, I do. Okay, that's another whole podcast. I'll send you the counseling bill on this one. This is so loud to me right now, right? But okay, so I agree with this. And follow-up, by the way, people want to talk about themselves. Can we get that out there? Mm-hmm. People want to talk about themselves. And so if I get them to talk about themselves, that's a huge win. Now, a couple of practical things. Number one, my posture is leaned back. I'm chill. I'm fully present. I'm not rushed. And a second thing, tactically, what am I doing during that conversation? Okay, there's several things. Number one, let's say that we did get their kids checked in. I can take them on a canned, C-A-N-N-E-D, a canned tour. And I did that all the time. So let's say that they had already gone to church with their kids and they were putting their kids in children's, whoever knows the scenario, but I would take them on a tour if I could. And it was a well-worn path. I knew it well. I'm not going to say that I had it memorized, but I'd done it enough that I was very fluid, right? And so we would walk over here, I would show them these different areas of our ministry, and I would explain them in depth. Okay. Also finding out not how long have you gone to this church, but there are phrases that you can use that don't assume that they're a churchgoer. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, absolutely.
And so you don't want to ask questions, what church did you come from? Because they may not have come from a church.
Right.
So there's these phrases that are a little bit more, you're not assuming things, right?
Right.
Now this dates me a little bit, but we were way ahead of the curve, in my opinion, because we had high-end video with multiple angles and tons of B-roll. B-roll, for those of you who don't know, number one, we had me as a talking head, and then we had live footage with no audio that we spliced into my talking head video. So as I was speaking about small groups and children's ministry, we showed 3 or 4 shots of the camera showing kids in a small group.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like right now, this is a 2-person talking head video on YouTube right now. If we were to throw in video of small group stuff, that would be B-roll. And so we had, it was like, I mapped this thing out big time, right? But our website was not robust enough, and Vimeo did not even exist as a platform at this time. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And our website wasn't robust enough to house videos. And so our angle was fantastic. We're going to burn DVDs and we're going to create this little folder thing that had wonderful over-the-top brochures that had this adjoining DVD. And you would go in, it had a beautiful menu. You could pick which, it won huge. And so not only was I giving the tour, but I would give this and I would say, hey, listen, it's very simple, it's very short, but it's going to give you a deeper sense of who we are. And people did watch them. So it was a relaxed posture. It was potentially a tour. It was a follow-up virtual tour, right? So I gave them the real tour, physically walking around, and then I gave them an opportunity to go even deeper and a virtual tour. That was a lot of work, Bill, but it was a winner, right? It was a winner.
I love that. That's amazing. I mean, I think it like you did that. You were a pioneer, honestly, because nowadays, it is much easier to do what you did. It's way easier to have a YouTube channel as a church and to send people the links and send them to the links. But what I've noticed is, especially with this generation coming up of new parents, the number one thing that they want before investing in a church is they want to be able to get a sense of the space and the culture and what happens, and they don't like not knowing. So like everyone who goes to your church, everyone is going to go to your website first, and they're going to find, can I get a video of this guy teaching? What does it look like in the kids' classroom for my kids? What does it look like to check my kids in ministry? What does it look like to get from the parking lot into the building? Like all of those questions people are asking, and they want to know them before they're going to invest in you.
100%. In other words, it used to be, I am new to town and I'm going to go directly on a first date with this church at this church.
Right.
Okay. That's the old way. The new way is there's all these different checkpoints. They're going to your website. Does your website stink? Okay. Does your website have videos? Ooh, no. Then you're losing. You're losing before that first date. And by the way, we hadn't planned on talking about this, but this is a shameless plug for the Lead Digital course that I have. We literally walk through this entire thing and how the dating process has been elongated before you're going to commit to a church. Fine. But yes, we were old school. And well, no, we were not old school. We were innovative, and I sensed that that's what families wanted long before this was a thing. We ended up, of course, once our website was overhauled and it could support them, we did have this online. It was a pretty sweet and winning strategy. Another thing that I would do is I would put them into my office. And we would sit down. I had a wonderful space, man. It was not overwhelming. It had really calming lighting. It was like a coffee shop in my office. Now, I did that so that I could personally be in a space that I wanted to be in. Okay, that's first. Second, I would sit them down and we would have all kinds of conversations. What do you do for a living? How long have you been in this town? Tell me the beginnings of your story. And they ate it up. And so now, great. So those are just some suggestions. I'm sure there's 25 different strategies that people have in their back pocket to be that yes face. But you can't get there if you are completely tied up with all kinds of insanity and you're putting out fires nonstop. You're printing things on that Sunday morning. Duh. You had 95% or 38 hours of your work week and you didn't think through that you needed to have some photocopies made. I'm sorry. Like, you need to have disciplinary action. I mean, come on, man. Yeah, I love that. And you're touching now on the practical side of my original question, which is, what are some of the things that you can do so that your Sunday morning is a lot more smooth so you can be present? And I love what you said, like the simplest things, right? Making the copies ahead of time. Duh.
And so like I've done this before where I'm like, okay, I need to actually, during my week, I need to sit down and I need to list out every single thing that needs to happen so that Sunday morning is ready. Once I've done that, now I can say, what of these things on this list could I possibly do before I get to Sunday morning? And I need to make sure all of those are in place, or all the people are in place, so that those things happen without me.
Bingo. And another thing, I got to be honest, Bill, I'm not trying to be self-aggrandizing here. I am super gifted at public speaking. I do it for a living all over the country. People pay me to come speak at their church. Fine. However, I was the best kid speaker at our church of, multiple thousands of people. No question I was the best kid speaker. But I rarely ever taught directly in front of kids. And people are like, what a waste. No, my best and highest use was not to be the direct teacher. My best and highest use was Monday to Thursday, teaching other people how to be a dynamic teacher. So my best and highest use wasn't to be the teacher. My best and highest use was to teach others to be the teacher. So I was very rarely ever out of play for new families at our church. I always had, it was extremely rare that I was tied down to one place. Now I had to work toward that, but the goal was very clear from the onset. I need to be not doing anything on any Sunday morning so that I can be present for new families as well as love and care for volunteers.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great vision for that. I remember that when we launched our campus and I was the campus pastor, and the first 3 months, I couldn't actually be a great campus pastor in meeting the new people that were coming because I was so caught up in putting out all of the fires because we were brand new. And it took a while. It took a season of me really intentionally saying, okay, these fires are happening every week. How do I fix all of these problems? Because when somebody visits a church, who do they want to meet?
The pastor.
They want to meet the leaders, right? They want to meet the people who are going to be in charge of their kids. They want to meet the pastor. They want to meet the people who work at the church. And so I worked diligently to make sure that we were correcting the issues so that I could be present.
That's exactly what we're talking about. So you got the vision that you want to be this person who's hyper present for these people. And then you got to go back in time and go, okay, so what's gonna jack that up? Now let's fix those things. And by the way, it's a good case of the normals, Bill. I'm glad you brought it up. If you are a new thing, a new venue or a new church plant, if you're new in your role, you're going to be putting out fires. But that should not be the norm.
Right. That should be a season.
That should be a season that you are working excessively hard for 38 hours a week to ensure that none of those things happen so that you're amazingly freed up for those 2 hours.
Amen.
Well, I got to say, we're going to close this particular episode. And what I want to say about this is, hello, yes, shameless plug. Leadministry.com is the secret weapon for you to get all of these crazy things that are chomping at your heels and the fires that you have to get them put out and under control. And therefore, you're present. There's nothing that's the truth. And so if you aren't a member of leadministry.com, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to consider joining so that you can have a path and a system and downloads and all the good things to get out of the weeds so that you can have that yes face and be a great person as it relates to new families. Bill, any closing thoughts, buddy?
No, just I know ministry can be insane, and you can hear this episode and go, man, I'm failing in so many ways, but just know that it doesn't have to be that way. And yes, Lead Ministry could help you. Yeah. And once you get these things figured out, it is definitely possible, maybe not every week, but it's definitely possible to be that person who's present for your new families and to be the connection point for them.
That's exactly right. Well, gang, we're grateful that you're here, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Lead Ministry Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and visit leadvolunteers.com for more episodes and resources. Thanks for listening.